Announcer bot is active. Nikki Lauda is pitting, is P18. Nigel Mansell is pitting, is P19. Gregory Myers is pitting, is P20. Rubens Barrichello is pitting, is P21. Mark DeGraw is P4. Chris Ammon is pitting, is P21. Mike Hawthorne is pitting, is P19. Damon Hill is P4. Nigel Mansell is P1. Damon Hill is pitting, is P18. Mark DeGraw is P5. Sterling Moss is pitting, is P16. Chris Ammon is P3. Mike Hawthorne is P4. Damon Hill is P5. Dan Gurney is pitting, is P21. Dan Gurney is P1. Juan Manuel Fangio is pitting, is P18. Nikki Lauda is P2. Emerson Fittipaldi is pitting, is P20. Rubens Barrichello is pitting, is P21. Ronnie Peterson is pitting, is P20. Richard Petty is P8. Emerson Fittipaldi is P3. Juan Manuel Fangio is P4. Ronnie Peterson is P5. Richard Petty is pitting after 2 laps, is P19. Nigel Mansell is pitting, is P17. Richard Petty is P6. Richard Petty is pitting, is P19. Richard Petty is P5. Nigel Mansell is P1. Dan Gurney is pitting, is P17. Jeff Gordon is pitting, is P17. Dan Gurney is P2. Jeff Gordon is P6. Jeff Gordon is pitting, is P17. Nikki Lauda is pitting, is P16. James Hunt is pitting, is P16. Jeff Gordon is P3. Jeff Gordon is pitting, is P17. James Hunt is P3. James Hunt is pitting, is P16. Gregory Myers is pitting, is P13. Emerson Fittipaldi is pitting, is P15. Jeff Gordon is P1. Nikki Lauda is P2. James Hunt is P3. Rubens Barrichello is P4. Sterling Moss is P5. Emerson Fittipaldi is P6. Mark DeGraw is pitting, is P17. Gregory Myers is P7. Nigel Mansell is pitting, is P17. Damon Hill is pitting, is P18. Damon Hill is P6. Damon Hill is pitting, is P18. Gregory Myers is pitting, is P15. Kevin Miller is P7. Mark DeGraw is P4. Nigel Mansell is P5. Kevin Miller is pitting his P18. Gregory Myers is P3. Damon Hill is P4. Kevin Miller is P8. Kevin Miller is pitting his P19. Kevin Miller is P5. Dan Gurney is pitting his P19. Jack Brabham is pitting after 2 laps his P18. Peter Collins is pitting his P19. James Hunt is pitting his P17. Dan Gurney is P4. Jack Brabham is P5. Peter Collins is P3. James Hunt is P4. Emerson Fittipaldi is pitting his P20. Chris Ammon is pitting his P20. Chris Ammon is P1. Emerson Fittipaldi is P2. Mike Hawthorne is P8. Lorenzo Bandini is pitting his P20. Mario Andretti is pitting his P20. Mike Hawthorne is pitting after 2 laps his P20. Alberto Ascari is pitting his P19. Lorenzo Bandini is P1. Mike Hawthorne is P2. Alberto Ascari is P3. Alberto Ascari is pitting his P22. Alberto Ascari is P3. Alberto Ascari is pitting his P22. Alberto Ascari is P3. Alberto Ascari is pitting his P22. Alberto Ascari is P3. Alberto Ascari is pitting his P22. Alberto Ascari is pitting his P21. Jackie Stewart is pitting his P19. Dan Gurney is P4. Mark Webber is pitting his P22. Mario Andretti is P2. Mike Hawthorne is pitting his P22. Mike Hawthorne is P3. Mike Hawthorne is pitting his P22. Alberto Ascari is P3. Dan Gurney is P3. Jackie Stewart is P4. Mark Webber is P5. Mike Hawthorne is P6. Emerson Fittipaldi is pitting his P21. Alberto Ascari is pitting his P20. James Hunt is pitting his P20. James Hunt is P1. James Hunt is pitting his P20. Alberto Ascari is P1. Emerson Fittipaldi is P2. Peter Collins is pitting his P22. Kenneth McAlpine is pitting his P22. James Hunt is P1. Alain Prost is pitting his P21. Kenneth McAlpine is P1. Bruce McLaren is pitting his P22. Juan Manuel Fangio is pitting after 2 laps his P20. Jeff Gordon is pitting his P20. Bruce McLaren is P4. Bruce McLaren is pitting his P22. Niki Lauda is pitting his P20. Niki Lauda is P3. Richard Petty is pitting his P20. Richard Petty is P1. Richard Petty is pitting his P20. Niki Lauda is pitting his P19. Jeff Gordon is P1. Juan Manuel Fangio is P2. Peter Collins is P3. Niki Lauda is P5. Bruce McLaren is P4. Niki Lauda is pitting his P22. Damon Hill is pitting his P23. Alberto Ascari is pitting his P21. Richard Petty is P5. Niki Lauda is P6. Emerson Fittipaldi is pitting his P21. Alberto Ascari is P7. Damon Hill is P8. Emerson Fittipaldi is P9. Alberto Ascari is pitting his P23. Alberto Ascari is P2. Dan Gurney is pitting his P23. Kenneth McAlpine is pitting his P23. Dan Gurney is P1. Dale Earnhardt is pitting his P23. Ronnie Peterson is pitting his P23. Dale Earnhardt is P2. Kevin Miller is pitting after 2 laps his P23. Gregory Myers is pitting after 2 laps his P22. Kenneth McAlpine is P3. Ronnie Peterson is P3. David Zahn is pitting his P24. Dale Earnhardt is pitting his P25. David Zahn is P2. Dale Earnhardt is P3. Kevin Miller is P7. Kevin Miller is pitting is P25. Alberto Ascari is pitting is P24. Alberto Ascari is P3. Alain Prost is P4. Kevin Miller is P8. Nigel Mansell is pitting is P25. Rubens Barrichello is pitting after 2 laps is P25. Sterling Moss is pitting after 2 laps is P23. David Zahn is pitting is P24. Kevin Miller is pitting is P24. Nigel Mansell is P3. Mike Hawthorne is pitting after 2 laps is P21. Bob Anderson is P1. Mike Hawthorne is P3. Dale Earnhardt is pitting is P23. Dale Earnhardt is P5. Dale Earnhardt is pitting is P23. Alberto Ascari is pitting is P21. David Zahn is P8. David Zahn is pitting is P20. Alberto Ascari is P7. Dale Earnhardt is P1. Rubens Barrichello is P3. Mark DeGraw is pitting is P23. Sterling Moss is P9. Nigel Mansell is pitting is P21. David Zahn is P2. Rubens Barrichello is pitting is P24. Gregory Myers is P3. Kevin Miller is P4. Chris Ammon is pitting is P24. Mark DeGraw is P5. Mario Andretti is pitting after 2 laps is P21. Nigel Mansell is P6. Mario Andretti is P10. Mario Andretti is pitting is P21. Mario Andretti is P8. Mario Andretti is pitting is P21. Mario Andretti is P8. Chris Ammon is P7. Rubens Barrichello is P8. Chris Ammon is pitting is P23. Chris Ammon is P1. Dan Gurney is pitting is P22. Jeff Gordon is pitting is P23. Emerson Fittipaldi is pitting his P21. Dan Gurney is P1. Sterling Moss is pitting his P20. Emerson Fittipaldi is P2. Nigel Mansell is pitting his P21. Richard Petty is pitting his P21. Richard Petty is P5. James Hunt is pitting his P22. Richard Petty is pitting his P21. Sterling Moss is P9. Sterling Moss is pitting his P19. Jeff Gordon is P3. Alberto Ascari is pitting his P22. Nigel Mansell is P4. Richard Petty is P4. James Hunt is P4. Sterling Moss is P5. Alberto Ascari is P6. Bruce McLaren is pitting after 2 laps his P26. Jim Clark is pitting his P25. Damon Hill is pitting his P25. Juan Manuel Fangio is pitting after 2 laps his P24. Ronnie Peterson is pitting his P26. Bruce McLaren is P2. Jim Clark is P3. Jeff Gordon is pitting his P23. Mario Andretti is pitting his P22. Damon Hill is P3. Mario Andretti is P5. Mario Andretti is pitting his P23. Ronnie Peterson is P4. Jeff Gordon is P5. Mario Andretti is P4. Rubens Barrichello is pitting his P26. Rubens Barrichello is P5. Rubens Barrichello is pitting his P26. Lorenzo Bandini is pitting his P26. Bruce McLaren is pitting his P24. Lorenzo Bandini is P1. Rubens Barrichello is P1. Bruce McLaren is P2. John Surtees is pitting his P28. Kenneth McAlpine is pitting after 2 laps his P27. Nicky Lauda is pitting his P25. Nicky Lauda is P4. Nicky Lauda is pitting his P24. Ronnie Peterson is pitting his P25. Kenneth McAlpine is P3. Ronnie Peterson is P5. Ronnie Peterson is pitting his P26. John Surtees is P2. Bob Anderson is pitting his P25. Ronnie Peterson is P3. Nicky Lauda is P3. Mario Andretti is pitting his P24. Alberto Ascari is pitting his P24. Jeff Gordon is pitting is P23. Alberto Ascari is P1. Jeff Gordon is P5. Ronnie Peterson is pitting is P23. Jeff Gordon is pitting is P22. Bob Anderson is P2. Peter Collins is pitting is P23. Mario Andretti is P3. Mario Andretti is pitting is P22. Jeff Gordon is P3. Ronnie Peterson is P4. Mario Andretti is P5. Peter Collins is P5. Chris Ammon is pitting is P24. Peter Collins is pitting is P23. Peter Collins is P1. Ronnie Peterson is pitting is P23. Ronnie Peterson is P23. Ronnie Peterson is pitting is P22. John Surtees is pitting is P21. Mario Andretti is pitting is P21. Gregory Myers is pitting after 2 laps is P20. Ronnie Peterson is P1. Mark DeGraw is pitting after 2 laps is P22. David Zahn is pitting after 2 laps is P20. John Surtees is P2. Kevin Miller is pitting after 2 laps is P22. Gregory Myers is P5. Mark DeGraw is P4. Alain Prost is pitting is P19. Dale Earnhardt is pitting after 2 laps is P22. Chris Ammon is P3. Nigel Mansell is P11. Mike Hawthorne is pitting is P24. Dale Earnhardt is P2. Emerson Fittipaldi is pitting after 2 laps is P23. Kenneth McAlpine is pitting is P25. Nigel Mansell is pitting after 2 laps is P20. Emerson Fittipaldi is P2. Nigel Mansell is P9. Kenneth McAlpine is P3. Sterling Moss is pitting is P21. James Hunt is pitting after 2 laps is P23. John Surtees is pitting is P23. Sterling Moss is P3. Mike Hawthorne is P3. David Zahn is P11. John Surtees is P4. David Zahn is pitting is P22. James Hunt is P4. Gregory Myers is pitting is P24. Mike Hawthorne is pitting is P24. Ronnie Peterson is pitting is P24. Ronnie Peterson is P3. Ronnie Peterson is pitting is P24. James Hunt is pitting is P21. Kevin Miller is P8. Mike Hawthorne is P2. Ronnie Peterson is P3. Kevin Miller is pitting is P23. James Hunt is P3. Mike Hawthorne is pitting is P25. Dan Gurney is pitting is P22. Mike Hawthorne is P3. Mark DeGraw is pitting is P23. Dan Gurney is P4. Nigel Mansell is pitting is P20. Jeff Gordon is pitting is P22. Alberto Ascari is pitting his P20. Mike Hawthorne is pitting his P24. Jeff Gordon is P2, Nigel Mansell is P2, Mike Hawthorne is P3, Gregory Myers is P4, Alain Prost is P5, Alberto Ascari is P6, Kevin Miller is P7, David Zahn is P8, Mark DeGraw is P9. Michael Schumacher is pitting his P24. Mario Andretti is P3. Michael Schumacher is P6. Alain Prost is pitting his P26. Alain Prost is P26. Michael Schumacher is pitting his P26. Alain Prost is pitting his P26. Alberto Ascari is pitting his P26. Jim Clark is pitting his P24. Alberto Ascari is P7. Dale Earnhardt is pitting his P24. John Surtees is pitting his P24. Alberto Ascari is pitting his P22. Michael Schumacher is P2. Alberto Ascari is P4. Alberto Ascari is pitting his P20. Emerson Fittipaldi is pitting his P19. Nigel Mansell is pitting his P18. John Surtees is P1, Nigel Mansell is P2, Emerson Fittipaldi is P3, Alberto Ascari is P4, Alain Prost is P5. Alain Prost is pitting his P22. Rubens Barrichello is pitting after 2 laps his P22. Alberto Ascari is pitting his P21. Emerson Fittipaldi is pitting his P20. Emerson Fittipaldi is P4. Emerson Fittipaldi is pitting his P20. Jim Clark is P1. Rubens Barrichello is P3. Dale Earnhardt is P2. Ronnie Peterson is pitting his P23. Rubens Barrichello is pitting his P23. Rubens Barrichello is P4. Rubens Barrichello is pitting his P23. Ronnie Peterson is P4. Nicky Lauda is pitting after 2 laps his P20. Ronnie Peterson is pitting his P22. Emerson Fittipaldi is P5. Rubens Barrichello is P7. Peter Collins is P6. Rubens Barrichello is pitting his P23. Rubens Barrichello is P8. Nicky Lauda is P7. Rubens Barrichello is pitting his P23. Rubens Barrichello is P9. Rubens Barrichello is pitting his P23. Ronnie Peterson is P8. Rubens Barrichello is P5. Chris Amon is pitting after 2 laps his P23. Chris Amon is P5. Chris Amon is pitting his P23. Dan Gurney is pitting his P22. Chris Ammon is P1. Dan Gurney is P2. Mario Andretti is pitting his P25. Sterling Moss is pitting after 2 laps his P25. Sterling Moss is P5. Richard Petty is pitting his P24. Richard Petty is P2. Richard Petty is pitting his P25. Mario Andretti is P1. Michael Schumacher is pitting his P24. Richard Petty is P2. Dan Gurney is pitting his P25. Dan Gurney is P3. James Hunt is pitting after 2 laps his P25. James Hunt is P5. Bruce McLaren is pitting his P27. Bruce McLaren is P7. Bruce McLaren is pitting his P27. Michael Schumacher is P1. Bruce McLaren is P2. Mario Andretti is pitting his P24. Jeff Gordon is pitting his P24. Mike Hawthorne is pitting after 2 laps his P25. Peter Collins is pitting his P24. Mario Andretti is P2. Jeff Gordon is P2. Jim Clark is pitting his P24. Mike Hawthorne is P3. Jeff Gordon is pitting his P25. Peter Collins is P3. Sterling Moss is pitting his P25. Jim Clark is P4. Bob Anderson is pitting his P26. Bob Anderson is P10. Jeff Gordon is P5. Sterling Moss is P6. Dale Earnhardt is pitting his P26. Bob Anderson is pitting his P26. Mike Hawthorne is pitting his P25. Mike Hawthorne is P9. Juan Manuel Fangio is P7. Mike Hawthorne is pitting his P27. Juan Manuel Fangio is pitting his P24. Mike Hawthorne is P7. Mike Hawthorne is pitting his P26. Mike Hawthorne is P26. Dale Earnhardt is P5. Bob Anderson is P6. Juan Manuel Fangio is P8. Juan Manuel Fangio is P7. Jim Clark is pitting his P26. Jim Clark is P3. Mike Hawthorne is P5. Juan Manuel Fangio is pitting his P27. Juan Manuel Fangio is pitting his P26. Mark DeGraw is pitting after 2 laps his P26. Gregory Myers is pitting after 2 laps his P26. Gregory Myers is P4. Mark DeGraw is P5. Juan Manuel Fangio is P2. John Surtees is pitting his P20. Nigel Mansell is P2. Michael Schumacher is pitting his P19. Michael Schumacher is P1. John Surtees is P2. Ronnie Peterson is pitting as P23. James Hunt is pitting as P22. Dale Earnhardt is pitting as P21. Ronnie Peterson is P1. David Zahn is pitting as P23. Dale Earnhardt is P2. Emerson Fittipaldi is pitting after 2 laps as P21. Bruce McLaren is pitting as P22. Alberto Ascari is pitting as P20. James Hunt is P3. James Hunt is pitting as P21. James Hunt is P3. Mark DeGraw is pitting as P19. David Zahn is P4. Alberto Ascari is P10. Alberto Ascari is pitting as P23. Alberto Ascari is P10. Alberto Ascari is pitting as P23. Emerson Fittipaldi is P4. James Hunt is pitting as P24. James Hunt is P7. Alberto Ascari is P11. Alberto Ascari is pitting as P24. Mark DeGraw is P3. Dale Earnhardt is pitting as P24. David Zahn is pitting as P25. James Hunt is pitting as P22. Alberto Ascari is P8. Graham Hill is pitting after 2 laps as P20. Alberto Ascari is pitting as P19. Dale Earnhardt is P2. Emerson Fittipaldi is pitting as P19. Mark Webber is P3. Bruce McLaren is P4. James Hunt is P5. Chris Amon is pitting as P25. Nicky Lauda is P6. Alberto Ascari is P7. Emerson Fittipaldi is P8. Chris Amon is P12. Chris Amon is pitting as P26. Chris Amon is P12. Chris Amon is pitting as P26. Nicky Lauda is pitting as P22. Nicky Lauda is P20. Alain Prost is pitting as P23. Michael Schumacher is pitting as P22. John Surtees is pitting as P25. Graham Hill is P2. Mario Andretti is pitting as P25. Bob Anderson is pitting as P28. Michael Schumacher is P3. Alain Prost is P4. Bob Anderson is P5. Gregory Myers is pitting as P27. Jackie Stewart is pitting as P24. Jackie Stewart is P7. Jackie Stewart is pitting as P24. Alain Prost is pitting as P23. Damon Hill is pitting as P25. Mario Andretti is P3. John Surtees is P3. Mario Andretti is pitting as P24. Mario Andretti is P2. Mario Andretti is pitting as P24. Mario Andretti is P3. Mario Andretti is P3. Jackie Stewart is P4. Richard Petty is pitting as P23. Richard Petty is pitting as P23. Damon Hill is P4. Alain Prost is P5. James Hunt is pitting as P23. James Hunt is P7. James Hunt is pitting as P23. James Hunt is pitting as P23. Richard Petty is P6. Lorenzo Bandini is pitting as P24. Lorenzo Bandini is P6. Lorenzo Bandini is pitting as P24. James Hunt is P5. Peter Collins is pitting as P23. Peter Collins is P4. Alain Prost is pitting as P23. Alberto Ascari is pitting as P23. Kevin Miller is pitting as P24. Alberto Ascari is P8. Richard Petty is pitting as P23. Richard Petty is P3. Richard Petty is pitting as P23. Collins is pitting as P24. Alberto Ascari is pitting as P21. Lorenzo Bandini is P2. David Zahn is P3. Alain Prost is P4. Kevin Miller is P5. Gregory Myers is P6. James Hunt is pitting as P26. Richard Petty is P7. Alberto Ascari is P8. Peter Collins is P9. Nigel Mansell is P16. Graham Hill is pitting as P27. James Hunt is P10. Nigel Mansell is pitting after 2 laps as P27. Graham Hill is P9. Sterling Moss is pitting after 2 laps as P27. Nigel Mansell is P14. Mike Hawthorne is pitting after 2 laps as P28. Jackie Stewart is pitting as P26. Nigel Mansell is pitting as P27. Jackie Stewart is P5. Jackie Stewart is pitting as P25. Jim Clark is pitting after 2 laps as P25. Sterling Moss is P3. Mike Hawthorne is P4. Jeff Gordon is pitting after 2 laps as P28. Nigel Mansell is P5. Jim Clark is P9. Jim Clark is pitting as P27. Jim Clark is P8. Jim Clark is pitting as P27. Dale Earnhardt is pitting as P27. Nicky Lauda is pitting as P26. Jeff Gordon is P7. Jim Clark is P7. Jackie Stewart is P5. Jim Clark is pitting as P26. Juan Manuel Fangio is pitting as P25. Jim Clark is P7. Juan Manuel Fangio is P7. Dale Earnhardt is P6. Juan Manuel Fangio is pitting as P25. Nicky Lauda is P4. Juan Manuel Fangio is P4. Emerson Fittipaldi is pitting as P26. Alain Prost is pitting as P25. Dale Earnhardt is pitting as P26. Peter Collins is pitting as P26. Emerson Fittipaldi is P2. Peter Collins is P5. Peter Collins is pitting as P26. Peter Collins is P5. Richard Petty is pitting as P25. Richard Petty is P5. Peter Collins is pitting as P26. Richard Petty is pitting as P24. Alain Prost is P4. Peter Collins is P5. Richard Petty is P4. Peter Collins is pitting as P26. Peter Collins is P6. Peter Collins is pitting as P26. Peter Collins is P5. Peter Collins is pitting as P27. Peter Collins is P5. Peter Collins is pitting as P27. Peter Collins is P7. Peter Collins is pitting as P27. Peter Collins is P4. Peter Collins is pitting as P27. Peter Collins is P3. Jim Clark is pitting as P28. Peter Collins is pitting is P28. James Hunt is pitting as P27. James Hunt is P4. Jeff Gordon is pitting as P26. Alberto Ascari is pitting as P25. Jim Clark is P1. Peter Collins is P2. Mike Hawthorne is pitting as P27. Alberto Ascari is P8. Alberto Ascari is pitting as P25. Mike Hawthorne is P3. Alberto Ascari is P4. Nicky Lauda is pitting as P25. Alberto Ascari is pitting as P26. P25. Alberto Ascari is P4. Alberto Ascari is pitting is P25. Jeff Gordon is P5. Richard Petty is pitting is P26. Alberto Ascari is pitting is P24. Nicky Lauda is P3. Richard Petty is P4. Alberto Ascari is P6. Alberto Ascari is pitting is P25. James Hunt is P5. John Surtees is pitting is P27. Alberto Ascari is P8. Alberto Ascari is pitting is P26. Peter Collins is pitting is P27. Alberto Ascari is P7. Alberto Ascari is pitting is P25. Bruce McLaren is pitting after 2 laps is P26. Mark Webber is pitting after 2 laps is P26. Mike Hawthorne is pitting is P27. Mike Hawthorne is P4. Alberto Ascari is P7. Alberto Ascari is pitting is P23. Bruce McLaren is P5. Mark Webber is P4. Peter Collins is P5. Bruce McLaren is pitting is P26. Peter Collins is pitting is P26. John Surtees is P2. Alberto Ascari is P2. Peter Collins is P3. Dale Earnhardt is pitting is P24. Mark Webber is pitting is P25. Nigel Mansell is pitting is P22. Richard Petty is pitting is P22. Bob Anderson is pitting after 2 laps is P26. Richard Petty is P5. Richard Petty is pitting is P21. Dale Earnhardt is P4. Bob Anderson is P7. Richard Petty is P2. Bob Anderson is pitting is P27. Bruce McLaren is P3. Mark Webber is P4. Nigel Mansell is P5. Bob Anderson is P6. Peter Collins is pitting is P26. Chris Ammon is P2. Peter Collins is P3. Nicky Lauda is pitting is P26. Mike Hawthorne is pitting is P26. Damon Hill is pitting is P25. Nicky Lauda is P2. Peter Collins is pitting is P25. Mike Hawthorne is P2. Peter Collins is P3. Damon Hill is P7. Alberto Ascari is pitting is P26. Damon Hill is pitting is P26. Alberto Ascari is P3. Damon Hill is P2. Mike Hawthorne is pitting is P26. Peter Collins is pitting is P25. Dale Earnhardt is pitting is P24. Richard Petty is pitting is P23. Richard Petty is P4. Richard Petty is pitting is P23. Alain Prost is pitting is P23. Dale Earnhardt is P3. Peter Collins is P4. Richard Petty is P4. Mike Hawthorne is P4. John Surtees is pitting is P27. Alain Prost is P5. John Surtees is P2. Michael Schumacher is pitting his P23. Chris Ammon is pitting his P23. Mark DeGraw is pitting after 2 laps his P22. Jackie Stewart is pitting after 2 laps his P21. Emerson Fittipaldi is pitting after 2 laps his P22. Chris Ammon is P1. Jackie Stewart is P3. Jackie Stewart is pitting his P21. Emerson Fittipaldi is P24. Gregory Myers is pitting after 2 laps his P24. Alain Prost is pitting his P23. David Zahn is pitting after 2 laps his P25. Dale Earnhardt is pitting his P23. Jackie Stewart is P2. Graham Hill is pitting after 2 laps his P22. Peter Collins is pitting his P22. Dale Earnhardt is P3. Sterling Moss is pitting his P18. Emerson Fittipaldi is P5. Peter Collins is P4. Gregory Myers is P6. Emerson Fittipaldi is pitting his P21. Sterling Moss is P3. Emerson Fittipaldi is P5. Emerson Fittipaldi is pitting his P22. Kenneth McAlpine is P5. David Zahn is P7. Niki Lauda is pitting his P21. Gregory Myers is pitting his P21. Michael Schumacher is P3. Mike Hawthorne is pitting his P24. Kenneth McAlpine is pitting his P24. Dale Earnhardt is pitting his P22. Michael Schumacher is pitting his P18. Niki Lauda is P1. Michael Schumacher is P3. Michael Schumacher is pitting his P19. Michael Schumacher is P3. Dale Earnhardt is P2. Mike Hawthorne is P3. Michael Schumacher is pitting his P21. Emerson Fittipaldi is P4. Jeff Gordon is pitting his P25. Kenneth McAlpine is P5. David Zahn is pitting his P25. Michael Schumacher is P6. Rubens Barrichello is pitting his P25. John Surtees is pitting his P25. Lorenzo Bandini is pitting his P26. Jeff Gordon is P5. Jeff Gordon is pitting his P23. Lorenzo Bandini is P4. Lorenzo Bandini is pitting his P26. Lorenzo Bandini is P4. Lorenzo Bandini is pitting his P25. Rubens Barrichello is P3. Jackie Stewart is pitting his P20. Jackie Stewart is P1. David Zahn is P1. Jackie Stewart is pitting his P21. Gregory Myers is P2. Lorenzo Bandini is P3. Mark DeGraw is P4. Jackie Stewart is P5. Bob Anderson is pitting after 2 laps his P23. Damon Hill is pitting his P21. Bob Anderson is P1. Damon Hill is P1. Bruce McLaren is pitting after 2 laps is P22. Bruce McLaren is P6. Bruce McLaren is pitting is P22. Mark Webber is pitting after 2 laps is P22. Alberto Ascari is P5. Bruce McLaren is P2. Nigel Mansell is pitting is P20. Chris Ammon is pitting is P21. Bruce McLaren is pitting is P21. Alberto Ascari is pitting after 2 laps is P20. Mark Webber is P3. Mark Webber is pitting is P23. Jeff Gordon is P5. Chris Ammon is P1. Bruce McLaren is P4. Bruce McLaren is pitting is P24. Ronnie Peterson is pitting is P25. Chris Ammon is pitting is P26. Chris Ammon is P1. Chris Ammon is pitting is P26. Chris Ammon is P1. Nigel Mansell is P2. Dan Gurney is pitting is P21. Bruce McLaren is P3. Bruce McLaren is pitting is P22. Bruce McLaren is P3. Bruce McLaren is pitting is P22. Bruce McLaren is P3. Ronnie Peterson is P3. Dan Gurney is P4. Mark Webber is P5. Nigel Mansell is pitting is P22. Mark Webber is pitting is P23. Alberto Ascari is P9. Mark Webber is P4. Alberto Ascari is pitting is P23. Mark Webber is pitting is P22. Mark Webber is P4. Mark Webber is pitting is P22. Mark Webber is P3. Mark Webber is pitting is P22. Mark Webber is P3. Mark Webber is pitting is P21. Bob Anderson is pitting is P21. Alberto Ascari is P5. Alberto Ascari is pitting is P19. Bob Anderson is P3. Alberto Ascari is P3. Alberto Ascari is pitting is P20. Mark Webber is P1. Alberto Ascari is P6. Alberto Ascari is pitting is P19. Alberto Ascari is P3. Alberto Ascari is pitting is P19. Nigel Mansell is P1. Alberto Ascari is P8. Alberto Ascari is pitting is P20. Nigel Mansell is pitting is P19. Nigel Mansell is P7. Gregory Myers is pitting is P18. Alberto Ascari is P6. Alberto Ascari is pitting is P20. Nigel Mansell is pitting is P19. Mark DeGraw is pitting is P19. David Zahn is pitting is P20. Nigel Mansell is P1. Alberto Ascari is P8. Alberto Ascari is pitting is P19. Rubens Barrichello is pitting is P20. Alberto Ascari is P7. Alberto Ascari is pitting is P18. Michael Schumacher is pitting is P16. Chris Ammon is pitting is P21. Gregory Myers is P2. Alberto Ascari is P8. David Zahn is P3. Mark DeGraw is P4. Alberto Ascari is pitting is P18. Alberto Ascari is P7. Alberto Ascari is pitting is P19. Dale Earnhardt is pitting is P18. Alberto Ascari is P9. Rubens Barrichello is P4. Alberto Ascari is pitting is P18. Michael Schumacher is P5. Alberto Ascari is P7. Alberto Ascari is pitting is P18. Chris Ammon is P6. Dale Earnhardt is P7. Peter Collins is pitting is P21. John Surtees is P8. John Surtees is pitting is P19. Alberto Ascari is P6. Alberto Ascari is pitting is P19. Peter Collins is P6. Alberto Ascari is P7. Alberto Ascari is pitting is P21. Alberto Ascari is P6. Alberto Ascari is pitting is P21. Alberto Ascari is P6. Alberto Ascari is pitting is P21. Alberto Ascari is P5. Alberto Ascari is pitting is P21. Rubens Barrichello is pitting is P21. Alberto Ascari is pitting is P20. Rubens Barrichello is pitting is P22. Alberto Ascari is pitting is P21. Lorenzo Bandini is pitting is P22. Jeff Gordon is pitting is P20. Jeff Gordon is P1. Rubens Barrichello is P1. Mike Hawthorne is P6. Jeff Gordon is pitting is P20. Alberto Ascari is P5. Nigel Mansell is pitting is P19. Michael Schumacher is pitting is P18. Alberto Ascari is pitting is P19. Jeff Gordon is P2. Alberto Ascari is P6. Lorenzo Bandini is P2. Alberto Ascari is pitting is P21. Mike Hawthorne is pitting after 2 laps is P21. Jeff Gordon is pitting is P20. Michael Schumacher is P3. Nigel Mansell is P4. Jeff Gordon is P5. Alberto Ascari is P6. Alberto Ascari is pitting is P20. Jeff Gordon is pitting is P20. Chris Ammon is pitting is P22. Jeff Gordon is P5. Sterling Moss is pitting after 2 laps is P19. Alberto Ascari is P6. Mike Hawthorne is P6. Sterling Moss is P10. Emerson Fittipaldi is pitting after 2 laps is P21. Chris Ammon is P4. Emerson Fittipaldi is P9. Sterling Moss is pitting is P22. Emerson Fittipaldi is pitting is P22. Sterling Moss is P2. Alberto Ascari is pitting is P22. Alberto Ascari is P19. Jackie Stewart is pitting after 2 laps is P19. Michael Schumacher is pitting is P18. Michael Schumacher is P2. Jackie Stewart is P3. Jackie Stewart is pitting is P19. Jackie Stewart is P1. Mike Hawthorne is pitting is P20. Jackie Stewart is pitting is P18. Jackie Stewart is P1. Jackie Stewart is pitting is P18. Jackie Stewart is P2. Michael Schumacher is pitting is P19. Jackie Stewart is pitting is P19. Jackie Stewart is P1. Sterling Moss is pitting is P20. Michael Schumacher is P1. Emerson Fittipaldi is P2. Mike Hawthorne is P3. Nicky Lauda is pitting is P23. Nicky Lauda is P6. Sterling Moss is P4. Nicky Lauda is pitting is P23. Nicky Lauda is P4. Ronnie Peterson is pitting his P23. Ronnie Peterson is P1. Ronnie Peterson is pitting his P23. James Hunt is pitting after 2 laps is P23. Ronnie Peterson is P1. James Hunt is P2. James Hunt is pitting his P24. James Hunt is P2. James Hunt is pitting his P23. Dale Earnhardt is pitting his P21. James Hunt is P1. Ronnie Peterson is pitting his P22. James Hunt is pitting his P21. James Hunt is P1. James Hunt is pitting his P21. Jim Clark is pitting his P18. James Hunt is P2. James Hunt is pitting his P21. James Hunt is P3. Jim Clark is pitting his P19. Dale Earnhardt is P1. Ronnie Peterson is P2. Jim Clark is P3. James Hunt is P4. Dale Earnhardt is pitting his P22. Dale Earnhardt is P20. Dale Earnhardt is pitting his P23. Dale Earnhardt is P1. Alain Prost is P2. Mark DeGraw is pitting after 2 laps is P22. Peter Collins is pitting after 2 laps is P22. Gregory Myers is pitting after 2 laps is P20. David Zahn is pitting after 2 laps is P21. Michael Schumacher is pitting is P18. Peter Collins is P5. Peter Collins is pitting his P21. Kenneth McAlpine is pitting his P22. Nigel Mansell is P5. Peter Collins is P1. Kenneth McAlpine is P2. Nigel Mansell is pitting after 2 laps is P20. Dan Gurney is pitting is P20. Nigel Mansell is P9. Nigel Mansell is pitting is P19. Lorenzo Bandini is pitting is P20. John Surtees is pitting after 2 laps is P18. Dan Gurney is P1. Nigel Mansell is P2. Alain Prost is pitting is P19. Bruce McLaren is pitting is P21. Bruce McLaren is P5. Bruce McLaren is pitting is P21. Lorenzo Bandini is P3. Alain Prost is P4. Bruce McLaren is P4. Kenneth McAlpine is pitting his P22. John Surtees is P4. David Zahn is pitting his P21. David Zahn is P6. David Zahn is pitting his P21. Lorenzo Bandini is pitting his P21. Lorenzo Bandini is P1. Chris Ammon is pitting after 2 laps his P22. Gregory Myers is pitting his P20. Kenneth McAlpine is P3. Chris Ammon is P3. Alain Prost is pitting his P18. Chris Ammon is pitting his P21. Chris Ammon is P1. David Zahn is P1. Gregory Myers is P2. Mark DeGraw is P3. Mike Hawthorne is pitting his P21. Jack Brabham is P8. Alain Prost is P4. Mike Hawthorne is P5. Jack Brabham is pitting his P23. Chris Ammon is pitting his P23. Nigel Mansell is pitting his P21. Jack Brabham is P3. Niki Lauda is pitting after 2 laps his P21. Emerson Fittipaldi is pitting after 2 laps his P22. Emerson Fittipaldi is P8. Alberto Ascari is pitting after 2 laps his P22. Peter Collins is pitting his P22. Emerson Fittipaldi is pitting his P20. Alberto Ascari is P6. Emerson Fittipaldi is P6. Rubens Barrichello is pitting his P21. Graham Hill is P6. Rubens Barrichello is P2. Niki Lauda is P2. Peter Collins is P3. Rubens Barrichello is pitting is P22. Nigel Mansell is P3. Alberto Ascari is pitting is P20. Rubens Barrichello is P4. Rubens Barrichello is pitting is P21. Alberto Ascari is P1. Nigel Mansell is pitting is P20. Chris Ammon is P2. Alain Prost is pitting is P19. Alberto Ascari is pitting is P20. Rubens Barrichello is P2. Nigel Mansell is P3. Alberto Ascari is P4. Alberto Ascari is pitting is P21. Alberto Ascari is P6. Alberto Ascari is pitting is P22. Alberto Ascari is P2. Alberto Ascari is pitting is P22. Chris Ammon is pitting is P22. Rubens Barrichello is pitting is P21. Alberto Ascari is P5. Alberto Ascari is pitting is P20. Chris Ammon is P4. Graham Hill is pitting is P21. Jack Brabham is pitting is P19. Nigel Mansell is pitting his P19. Graham Hill is P4. Rubens Barrichello is P1. Graham Hill is pitting his P23. Chris Ammon is pitting his P23. Nigel Mansell is P3. Alberto Ascari is P2. Nigel Mansell is pitting his P20. Nigel Mansell is P3. Chris Ammon is P4. Jack Brabham is P5. Graham Hill is P6. Rubens Barrichello is pitting his P24. Sterling Moss is pitting his P23. Rubens Barrichello is P2. Rubens Barrichello is pitting his P24. Alberto Ascari is pitting his P23. Rubens Barrichello is P19. Graham Hill is pitting his P23. Sterling Moss is P1. Alberto Ascari is P2. Chris Ammon is pitting his P23. Graham Hill is P3. Chris Ammon is P4. James Hunt is pitting his P24. Rubens Barrichello is pitting his P24. Rubens Barrichello is P3. Rubens Barrichello is pitting his P24. Rubens Barrichello is P1. Alberto Ascari is pitting his P23. Jim Clark is pitting after 2 laps his P21. Alberto Ascari is P2. James Hunt is P3. Dale Earnhardt is pitting his P24. Jack Brabham is pitting his P23. Rubens Barrichello is pitting his P24. Jim Clark is P3. Jackie Stewart is pitting his P20. Jackie Stewart is P4. Dale Earnhardt is P4. Jackie Stewart is pitting his P21. Alberto Ascari is pitting his P23. Jack Brabham is P4. Lorenzo Bandini is pitting after 2 laps his P25. Mike Hawthorne is pitting his P23. Alberto Ascari is P4. Jackie Stewart is P5. Rubens Barrichello is P6. James Hunt is pitting his P24. Rubens Barrichello is pitting his P25. Lorenzo Bandini is P5. Rubens Barrichello is P6. Rubens Barrichello is pitting his P26. Lorenzo Bandini is pitting his P26. Jack Brabham is pitting his P22. Lorenzo Bandini is P4. Lorenzo Bandini is pitting his P26. Mike Hawthorne is P3. John Surtees is pitting after 2 laps his P24. Kenneth McAlpine is pitting after 2 laps his P26. Rubens Barrichello is P2. Jack Brabham is P3. Lorenzo Bandini is P4. James Hunt is P5. Kenneth McAlpine is P8. Kenneth McAlpine is pitting his P26. Kenneth McAlpine is P8. Rubens Barrichello is pitting his P25. Rubens Barrichello is P22. David Zahn is pitting after 2 laps is P24. Gregory Myers is pitting after 2 laps is P25. Mark DeGraw is pitting after 2 laps is P22. Jack Brabham is pitting is P22. Gregory Myers is P1. Dale Earnhardt is pitting is P23. Alain Prost is P1. Michael Schumacher is P3. Dale Earnhardt is P2. Jack Brabham is P3. Alain Prost is pitting is P21. Peter Collins is pitting after 2 laps is P21. Nicky Lauda is pitting after 2 laps is P20. Peter Collins is P2. Nicky Lauda is P2. Michael Schumacher is pitting his P19. Peter Collins is pitting his P21. Richard Petty is P2. Michael Schumacher is P1. Nigel Mansell is pitting is P22. Chris Amon is pitting is P23. Richard Petty is pitting is P21. Richard Petty is P5. Richard Petty is pitting is P21. Rubens Barrichello is pitting is P22. Peter Collins is P2. Chris Amon is P2. Nigel Mansell is P3. Richard Petty is P4. Gregory Myers is P7. Gregory Myers is pitting is P21. Gregory Myers is P6. Rubens Barrichello is P5. Alain Prost is P3. David Zahn is pitting is P22. David Zahn is P6. David Zahn is pitting is P22. Mike Hawthorne is pitting is P21. Gregory Myers is pitting is P20. David Zahn is P1. Gregory Myers is P2. Mike Hawthorne is P3. Sterling Moss is pitting after 2 laps is P22. Alain Prost is pitting is P20. Sterling Moss is P1. Graham Hill is pitting as P22. Alain Prost is P3. Gregory Myers is pitting as P21. Nigel Mansell is pitting as P20. Graham Hill is P9. Nigel Mansell is P2. Dan Gurney is pitting as P21. Graham Hill is pitting as P20. Juan Manuel Fangio is pitting as P18. Juan Manuel Fangio is P2. Juan Manuel Fangio is pitting as P18. Jackie Stewart is pitting after 2 laps as P17. Dan Gurney is P2. Alain Prost is pitting as P20. Jack Brabham is pitting as P21. Juan Manuel Fangio is P2. Jackie Stewart is P3. Jack Brabham is P4. David Zahn is pitting as P21. Mike Hawthorne is pitting as P22. Lorenzo Bandini is pitting after 2 laps as P22. Jim Clark is pitting after 2 laps as P17. David Zahn is P1. Mike Hawthorne is P3. Mike Hawthorne is pitting as P21. Ronnie Peterson is pitting as P21. Jim Clark is P2. Gregory Myers is P2. Ronnie Peterson is P3. Ronnie Peterson is pitting as P21. Lorenzo Bandini is P3. Jim Clark is pitting as P19. Jim Clark is P4. Mike Hawthorne is P6. Mike Hawthorne is pitting as P20. Juan Manuel Fangio is pitting as P18. Mike Hawthorne is P5. Mike Hawthorne is pitting as P20. Ronnie Peterson is P4. Niki Lauda is pitting as P22. James Hunt is pitting as P22. James Hunt is P2. James Hunt is pitting as P22. James Hunt is P1. James Hunt is pitting as P22. Juan Manuel Fangio is P1. Niki Lauda is P2. Mike Hawthorne is P3. James Hunt is P4. Jim Clark is pitting his P21. Jim Clark is P1. Jeff Gordon is pitting his P21. Richard Petty is pitting his P20. Chris Ammon is pitting after 2 laps his P21. Peter Collins is pitting after 2 laps his P20. Richard Petty is P1. Richard Petty is pitting his P18. Peter Collins is P1. Gregory Myers is pitting his P19. Chris Ammon is P4. Jeff Gordon is P1. Chris Ammon is pitting his P20. Richard Petty is P2. Michael Schumacher is pitting after 2 laps his P18. Peter Collins is pitting his P18. Peter Collins is P3. Chris Ammon is P4. Michael Schumacher is P5. Michael Schumacher is pitting his P20. Michael Schumacher is P5. Michael Schumacher is pitting his P20. Rubens Barrichello is pitting his P20. Michael Schumacher is P4. David Zahn is pitting his P20. Gregory Myers is pitting his P22. Rubens Barrichello is P1. Sterling Moss is pitting his P20. Nigel Mansell is pitting after 2 laps is P20. David Zahn is P2. Gregory Myers is P3. Sterling Moss is P4. Rubens Barrichello is pitting his P23. Jeff Gordon is pitting his P21. Rubens Barrichello is P4. Rubens Barrichello is pitting his P23. Michael Schumacher is pitting his P19. Rubens Barrichello is P4. Jeff Gordon is P1. Michael Schumacher is P2. Nigel Mansell is P3. Alberto Ascari is pitting his P24. Rubens Barrichello is pitting his P25. Alain Prost is P4. Rubens Barrichello is P5. Rubens Barrichello is pitting his P25. Alberto Ascari is P5. Jackie Stewart is pitting after 2 laps is P23. Rubens Barrichello is P6. Dan Gurney is pitting his P24. Jackie Stewart is P4. Michael Schumacher is pitting is P23. Jackie Stewart is pitting is P23. Jackie Stewart is P4. Jack Brabham is pitting after 2 laps is P23. Dan Gurney is P2. Michael Schumacher is P2. Jack Brabham is P8. Rubens Barrichello is pitting is P26. Rubens Barrichello is P3. Rubens Barrichello is pitting is P26. Rubens Barrichello is P3. Rubens Barrichello is pitting is P26. Rubens Barrichello is P3. Ronnie Peterson is pitting after 2 laps is P25. Lorenzo Bandini is pitting after 2 laps is P25. Ronnie Peterson is P4. Ronnie Peterson is pitting is P24. Ronnie Peterson is P4. Ronnie Peterson is pitting is P24. Dan Gurney is pitting is P22. Dan Gurney is P4. Graham Hill is P8. Kenneth McAlpine is pitting is P24. Dale Earnhardt is pitting is P22. Kenneth McAlpine is P1. Mario Andretti is P2. Juan Manuel Fangio is pitting after 2 laps is P22. Juan Manuel Fangio is P9. Juan Manuel Fangio is pitting is P22. Juan Manuel Fangio is P9. Juan Manuel Fangio is pitting is P22. Dale Earnhardt is P3. Ronnie Peterson is P1. Ronnie Peterson is pitting is P24. Ronnie Peterson is P1. Nicky Lauda is pitting after 2 laps is P24. Graham Hill is pitting is P24. Ronnie Peterson is pitting is P24. Nigel Mansell is pitting is P22. Sterling Moss is pitting is P20. Ronnie Peterson is P1. Nigel Mansell is P2. Sterling Moss is P3. Mario Andretti is pitting is P22. Ronnie Peterson is pitting his P24. Ronnie Peterson is P3. Jack Brabham is pitting his P22. Nigel Mansell is pitting his P21. Sterling Moss is pitting his P19. Jim Clark is pitting after 2 laps his P16. Mario Andretti is P1. Graham Hill is P2. Richard Petty is pitting after 2 laps his P23. Jack Brabham is P3. Nigel Mansell is P4. Jim Clark is P6. Jim Clark is pitting his P19. Sterling Moss is P5. Jim Clark is P7. Richard Petty is P6. Chris Ammon is pitting after 2 laps his P23. Jim Clark is pitting his P19. Lorenzo Bandini is P2. Nicky Lauda is P2. Nicky Lauda is pitting his P21. Lorenzo Bandini is pitting his P21. Nicky Lauda is P1. Nicky Lauda is pitting his P20. Lorenzo Bandini is P1. Nigel Mansell is pitting his P21. Gregory Myers is pitting after 2 laps his P21. Alberto Ascari is pitting his P20. Alberto Ascari is P5. Alberto Ascari is pitting his P20. Emerson Fittipaldi is pitting his P19. Gregory Myers is P5. Nigel Mansell is P2. Jim Clark is P3. Emerson Fittipaldi is P3. Alberto Ascari is P4. Gregory Myers is pitting his P22. David Zahn is pitting after 2 laps his P20. David Zahn is P3. David Zahn is pitting his P20. Alberto Ascari is pitting his P19. Alberto Ascari is P5. Rubens Barrichello is pitting his P21. Alberto Ascari is pitting his P18. Rubens Barrichello is P1. Emerson Fittipaldi is pitting his P18. Rubens Barrichello is pitting his P21. Gregory Myers is P1. Jeff Gordon is pitting after 2 laps his P20. David Zahn is P2. Rubens Barrichello is P3. Emerson Fittipaldi is P4. Alberto Ascari is P5. Chris Ammon is P4. Emerson Fittipaldi is pitting his P21. Emerson Fittipaldi is P16. Bruce McLaren is pitting his P21. Bruce McLaren is P1. Rubens Barrichello is pitting his P21. Rubens Barrichello is P2. Rubens Barrichello is pitting his P21. Nicky Lauda is P3. Rubens Barrichello is P1. Alain Prost is pitting his P21. Jeff Gordon is P3. Mario Andretti is pitting his P22. Graham Hill is pitting his P22. Graham Hill is P6. Graham Hill is pitting his P22. Dale Earnhardt is pitting after 2 laps is P21. Dale Earnhardt is P5. Dale Earnhardt is pitting is P21. Dale Earnhardt is P5. Graham Hill is P6. Sterling Moss is pitting his P21. Graham Hill is pitting his P21. Dale Earnhardt is pitting his P22. Sterling Moss is P1. Alain Prost is P2. Mario Andretti is P3. Graham Hill is P4. Jim Clark is pitting his P21. Dale Earnhardt is P5. Jim Clark is P6. Jim Clark is pitting his P22. Jim Clark is P6. Jim Clark is pitting his P22. Kenneth McAlpine is pitting after 2 laps is P23. Jim Clark is P4. Ronnie Peterson is pitting is P23. Jeff Gordon is pitting is P22. Ronnie Peterson is P3. Jeff Gordon is P4. Dale Earnhardt is pitting his P22. Niki Lauda is pitting his P21. Dale Earnhardt is P1. Niki Lauda is P2. Nigel Mansell is pitting after 2 laps is P21. Gregory Myers is P5. Gregory Myers is pitting after 2 laps is P21. David Zahn is pitting after 2 laps is P20. David Zahn is P1. David Zahn is pitting is P20. David Zahn is P1. Gregory Myers is P2. Dan Gurney is pitting is P19. Nigel Mansell is P1. Dan Gurney is P2. Alberto Ascari is pitting after 2 laps is P18. Alberto Ascari is P7. Alberto Ascari is pitting is P19. Emerson Fittipaldi is pitting after 2 laps is P18. Chris Ammon is pitting after 2 laps is P20. Chris Ammon is P6. Chris Ammon is pitting is P20. Chris Ammon is P5. Alberto Ascari is P2. Emerson Fittipaldi is P3. Chris Ammon is pitting is P20. Jackie Stewart is pitting is P18. Chris Ammon is P3. Lorenzo Bandini is pitting after 2 laps is P19. Lorenzo Bandini is P7. John Surtees is P4. Lorenzo Bandini is pitting is P18. Jackie Stewart is P5. Emerson Fittipaldi is pitting is P17. Emerson Fittipaldi is P1. Lorenzo Bandini is P4. Chris Ammon is pitting is P17. Chris Ammon is P1. Peter Collins is pitting is P18. Peter Collins is P3. Peter Collins is pitting is P20. Michael Schumacher is pitting is P19. Michael Schumacher is P2. Bruce McLaren is pitting is P19. Bruce McLaren is P3. Bruce McLaren is pitting is P20. Nigel Mansell is pitting is P18. Kenneth McAlpine is P3. Peter Collins is P1. Bruce McLaren is P4. James Hunt is pitting is P21. Bruce McLaren is pitting is P21. Nigel Mansell is P1. Bruce McLaren is P2. Chris Ammon is pitting is P20. James Hunt is P3. Chris Ammon is P8. Nigel Mansell is pitting is P20. James Hunt is pitting is P20. Nigel Mansell is P1. James Hunt is P2. Sterling Moss is pitting after 2 laps is P21. Graham Hill is pitting after 2 laps is P22. Mark Webber is pitting is P22. Mark Webber is P1. Mark Webber is pitting is P22. Mark Webber is P1. Alberto Ascari is P13. Graham Hill is P8. Alain Prost is pitting after 2 laps is P21. Jim Clark is pitting after 2 laps is P20. Jeff Gordon is pitting after 2 laps is P22. Dale Earnhardt is pitting after 2 laps is P19. Graham Hill is pitting is P18. Richard Petty is pitting is P18. Jack Brabham is pitting is P16. Rubens Barrichello is pitting is P20. Sterling Moss is P8. James Hunt is pitting is P19. Rubens Barrichello is P2. Rubens Barrichello is pitting is P21. Dale Earnhardt is P4. Mike Hawthorne is pitting is P20. Richard Petty is P1. Sterling Moss is pitting is P15. Rubens Barrichello is P2. James Hunt is P3. Jack Brabham is P4. Dale Earnhardt is pitting is P18. Sterling Moss is P5. Mike Hawthorne is P6. Dale Earnhardt is P7. Jeff Gordon is P8. Michael Schumacher is pitting is P21. Chris Amon is P7. Niki Lauda is pitting is P20. Chris Amon is pitting after 2 laps is P21. Jeff Gordon is pitting is P20. Niki Lauda is P1. Chris Amon is P6. Chris Amon is pitting is P21. Jeff Gordon is P2. Chris Amon is P6. Michael Schumacher is P3. Kenneth McAlpine is pitting is P22. Emerson Fittipaldi is pitting after 2 laps is P21. Alberto Ascari is pitting after 2 laps is P21. Alberto Ascari is P10. Peter Collins is pitting is P21. Ronnie Peterson is pitting is P21. Kenneth McAlpine is P2. Alberto Ascari is pitting is P20. Mike Hawthorne is pitting is P21. Nigel Mansell is pitting is P17. Dan Gurney is pitting after 2 laps is P19. Alberto Ascari is P3. Emerson Fittipaldi is P4. Emerson Fittipaldi is pitting is P18. Alberto Ascari is pitting is P18. Mike Hawthorne is P2. Dan Gurney is P3. Emerson Fittipaldi is P5. Alberto Ascari is P4. Alberto Ascari is pitting is P19. Peter Collins is P4. John Surtees is pitting is P20. Nigel Mansell is P5. Alberto Ascari is P6. Jackie Stewart is pitting after 2 laps is P18. Jackie Stewart is P5. Ronnie Peterson is P6. Jackie Stewart is pitting is P19. Alberto Ascari is pitting is P19. Ronnie Peterson is pitting is P20. Emerson Fittipaldi is pitting is P17. Ronnie Peterson is P3. John Surtees is P3. Emerson Fittipaldi is P3. Alberto Ascari is P4. Jackie Stewart is P5. James Hunt is pitting is P21. Alberto Ascari is pitting is P17. Alberto Ascari is P5. Alberto Ascari is pitting is P17. Jackie Stewart is pitting is P16. Emerson Fittipaldi is pitting is P16. John Surtees is pitting is P18. Emerson Fittipaldi is P1. Alberto Ascari is P2. James Hunt is P3. John Surtees is P4. Jackie Stewart is P5. Jackie Stewart is pitting is P18. Jackie Stewart is P2. Jim Clark is P3. Rubens Barrichello is pitting is P20. Jim Clark is pitting is P19. Rubens Barrichello is P1. Jim Clark is P2. Rubens Barrichello is pitting his P18. John Surtees is pitting his P16. Jim Clark is pitting his P15. Mark Webber is pitting after 2 laps his P15. James Hunt is pitting his P14. Rubens Barrichello is P1. Jim Clark is P2. Jack Brabham is pitting after 2 laps his P14. Jack Brabham is P3. Jack Brabham is pitting his P14. Sterling Moss is pitting after 2 laps his P13. James Hunt is P3. Jack Brabham is P4. Sterling Moss is P5. Jack Brabham is pitting his P15. Jack Brabham is P1. Sterling Moss is pitting his P14. Sterling Moss is P2. Niki Lauda is pitting after 2 laps is P13. Mike Hawthorne is P6. Mike Hawthorne is pitting after 2 laps is P14. Niki Lauda is P2. Mark Webber is P2. Mike Hawthorne is P3. Mike Hawthorne is pitting his P14. Mike Hawthorne is P3. Emerson Fittipaldi is pitting his P15. Mike Hawthorne is pitting his P15. Kenneth McAlpine is pitting after 2 laps his P15. Mike Hawthorne is P1. Kenneth McAlpine is P2. Emerson Fittipaldi is P3. Dan Gurney is pitting after 2 laps is P15. Dan Gurney is P3. Jack Brabham is pitting as P14. Nigel Mansell is pitting after 2 laps as P13. Nigel Mansell is P5. Jack Brabham is P1. Nigel Mansell is pitting as P14. Nigel Mansell is P6. Jack Brabham is pitting as P14. Jack Brabham is P1. Jack Brabham is pitting as P14. Nigel Mansell is pitting as P13. Jack Brabham is P1. Peter Collins is pitting after 2 laps as P14. Nigel Mansell is P2. Peter Collins is P3. Jack Brabham is pitting as P15. Alberto Ascari is pitting as P15. Jack Brabham is P3. Alberto Ascari is P3. James Hunt is pitting after 2 laps as P17. James Hunt is P3. Ronnie Peterson is pitting as P17. James Hunt is pitting as P15. Ronnie Peterson is P1. James Hunt is P2. Rubens Barrichello is pitting as P15. Rubens Barrichello is P3.